did a lot. We got a lot of support from the government, I must say. We initially got a BIPP grant. Then we got a soft loan to start with. At that time, this BIPP was not there, so we started way back in when the BIRAC started. And then we got a soft loan, which we repaid, of course. And after that, we got a grant in aid. So I would say about 20% of the cost of the entire project was supported by the government of India, which we have successfully delivered on.
Its mechanism, that how it helps in that overall in treatment.
Thank you, sir. What I would like to emphasize is that type 2 diabetes, which is basically occurring in adult onset diabetes, is the incidence in our country is increasing phenomenally. The just released ICMR in-depth guidelines, where survey was carried out throughout the country in all the states, it found that the incidence of type 2 diabetes in our country is currently more than 10 crores. So it is covering almost 11% of the Indian population, and this is exploding at a very faster rate. It was not expected to reach this fast, and prior to diabetes we have a pre-diabetes status where the glucose homeostasis is not normal, the glucose metabolism is not normal, and that incidence is, as was mentioned, was 15% of the Indian population has pre-diabetes. So together, if we take diabetes and pre-diabetes, 27% of our population is having this phenomenon. And why we are, why we would like to emphasize on this is that prevention is the need of the hour, because diabetes is not a just disease, it is high in carbohydrates. So we need to reduce the carbohydrates and have more protein, but we can't, because of non-vegetarian food we don't eat most of us. So we don't have that animal source here. So what source we have is we have the vegetarian source, how you can improve the protein part, reduce the carbohydrate part, which is much more predominantly carbohydrate in India, and that's one. Plus other the physical activities, sedentary lifestyle, all these things have and plus genetic proneness. So together everything has created this type 2 diabetes havoc, and we need to address it very urgently.
To the therapy, like it's there's so much interventions that that is required. So how are you
Presently we are all oral available, like for glimepiride, glycosides, then DPP inhibitors, then DAPA, and we have done a very extensive work in hydroxychloroquine sulfate in type 2 diabetes. So already we are very much into diabetes. Barring insulin, rest others we are addressing. So when you see comprehensive, and now Celestazole, maybe later on, like in a total food care, you need something for other things, for dressing the use, alginate and all those things. Maybe later on we can plan. So ultimately the aim is safe food, get every people aware about this, and have a very comprehensive treatment for diabetic foot ulcer.
So one more, so like when you said that this is a cardiac drug which was repurposed, so how did you get this idea, sir? Like is there any data that is available anywhere in the world? And also now that you've done the repurposing, how many countries that you've patented? Because now this is open for anyone to do the repurposing, right?
Yeah. So this reference of VLife came in. So when I started VLife, at that time the idea was to develop a software platform to fail the drug quickly. So basically, normally the cost of drugs is very high because the molecules fail very late in the trial, and all that failure cost is getting added to the successful drug. So idea with that particular technology was to fail the drug early. So we developed that technology, but there were no takers here in India because nobody was doing research in the first place. So we said that fine, we will use the technology ourselves and prove it. So that's where we started using our own developed technology, and through that we found that this particular drug, esmolol hydrochloride, binds to a protein target called aldose reductase, which is a pivotal protein in the aldose reductase pathway. So that is, it's a self-generated insight, I would say. There was no literature or any public domain information. That's why we could get patents. So we have got patents already granted in US, Europe, Japan, China, and any country that matters. So the worry that somebody would just make it is not going to happen.
So can you say this is a software simulated kind of?
I would say that it is software ideated product, not simulated but ideated.
Diabetes. So these complications, one of which we are discussing today is the product for which is diabetic foot ulcer. So diabetes classically affects the smaller blood vessels, which is called as microvascular disease, and it affects the larger blood vessels, which are called as macrovascular complications. So these complications are, retinopathy, that they affects the vision. So it's a preventable cause of blindness. Then you have nephropathy, kidneys getting involved, and then neuropathy. So neuropathy is very, very common compared to the other complications. And neuropathy is one of the reasons for diabetic foot disease. The other part is, macrovascular disease. When we talk about, you have the coronary artery disease. So a type 2 diabetes patient is much more prone to heart disease, what we call it. He is also prone to cerebrovascular disease, meaning when the brain blood vessels are affected, it results into stroke or loss of one side is gone. So there is a paralysis of one part of the body. And then the third circulation is the peripheral circulation, which is peripheral vascular disease. So diabetic foot, there is a combination of peripheral arterial disease and also neuropathy. So these are the two things together which does things. And along with that, if the diabetes is neglected, then it becomes uncontrolled hyperglycemia. The glucose levels go down. So when the glucose is uncontrolled, the normal pathway for glucose metabolism, which takes place from glucose to ATP and it is converted into energy, that pathway is actually oversaturated. So glucose to glucose 6-phosphatase does not take place. So it goes with the alternate pathway, and in that pathway the glucose is diverted to sorbitol and fructose, which are harmful chemicals are generated, which technically we call it advanced glycosylation end products. So they will cause all the complications of diabetes. And this particular product is actually a beta blocker, cardioselective beta blocker, but was approved in 1986 for treatment of arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is where the heart beats abnormally, faster or things like that. So this product was approved. Intravenous drug was available in all the markets, including India, where it is used to treat arrhythmia and hypertension when the patient undergoes anesthesia and intubation is done. So that's the use of this product. But now it is repurposed for diabetic foot ulcer by doing molecular docking studies by Nova Leads, where they showed that it corrects the aldose reductase pathways where the glucose metabolism is directed to at the local level as well. So where it creates blood circulation impairment and all that. So when you prevent this inhibition of aldose reductase pathway, you add in the ulcer healing. So this is very, very important. But it's important to remember that not only the application of this particular gel form at the feet level when the ulcer takes place, it is very important to address the peripheral circulation. So there are products to that, and IPCA has one product which also works there. And diabetes was initially considered just a glucose metabolism problem. It was just considered a metabolic disease. But as the science advances, your understanding also evolves. So then from metabolic disease, then it was found out that diabetes patients are more prone to heart disease. So it's not only metabolic, it is a vascular disease. So from that it came that diabetes is not just metabolic, it's metabolic also, vascular also. Then further understanding took place. Now the understanding is that diabetes is also low-grade inflammation. So there is a low-grade inflammation taking place, and that inflammation gives rise to progression of diabetes, complications of diabetes. So this is how the understanding has improved. And so there is a need to address this inflammation as well, which also can be done. So this is a comprehensive management is required. Control of blood sugar is very, very important. And this uncontrolled diabetes is creating all the complications which we are discussing, like diabetic kidney disease, retinopathy, retina involvement, and the peripheral arterial disease, peripheral neuropathy. So all these complications, a comprehensive management of all diabetes is required, along with the, of course, we have to take care of the ulcer, because diabetes are routinely told to inspect their feet regularly. So there is a very lot of preventive advice also should be given while treating this particular disease. I think that's what I think of.
Already have a robust manufacturing facility in place, and we see that there is no demand supply gap which is going to be there at all. All the preparations are already on, product is ready, available now. Well, Novartis Pharma is doing the manufacturing at a facility which we have loaned out.
In the state of Gujarat.
This licensing agreement with IPCA and Novel, like, what is this? Is it a revenue share or a profit share? Like,
Yes, sir.
or is there any milestone payments?
Novartis has spent large amount of money on research. So there is a licensing fees applicable, and some assistance also on initial part of approval. So we are close to almost around 13 crore we have paid to them for licensing. Thereafter, as the sales build up, there is also certain other milestone built up in the agreement, and at the same time they will also be getting royalties also on the product. So that is the reward they will get for their research work as per the part of agreement.
सर आजकल सर न्यू बेबी बोर्न होता है, उसको भी डायबिटीज़ होता है, तो वो क्या रीज़न है सर? और 100% में 99% लोगों को डायबिटीज़ आज की तारीख में बताया जा रहा है
सर, वो डॉक्टर पारिक
तो सर इसका क्या रीज़न है? और 100% डायबिटीज़ ही हो ही रहा है सबको?
नहीं, 100% तो नहीं, मैंने वैसे बताया 27% of the Indian population has either pre-diabetes or diabetes, which is very high. Actually, what you are alluding to, the newborns and all that, that is actually basically genetically driven. So those are genetically driven diabetes, which you can do the chromosomal studies and find out which type of diabetes it is and how it is working. So that's one part. So major part is type 2 diabetes, almost close to 90-95%, and other 5 to 10% part in India. Fortunately, type 1 diabetes is not so high, but the incidence is increasing, where it is taking place juvenile. Earlier it used to be referred to as juvenile diabetes, where the beta cells of the pancreas are destroyed because of the autoimmunity. So this is autoimmune disease where immunity is supposed to fight the outside infections and other things, but when immunity is directed towards its own cells, you get disease like rheumatoid arthritis, you get disease like type 1 diabetes or juvenile diabetes, where pancreatic beta cells are destroyed. So this is the type 1 diabetes. But the most worrying part is the type 2 diabetes, which is exploding in our country, and the genesis of that is actually also came out in the same ICMR in-depth study, which came in which was published in the Lancet journal, where the most important part is that visceral adiposity, visceral or abdominal adiposity, and it was first it came in 1980s. When I was working in Nair Hospital at that time, this came in the journal that Indians who are there in UK and US or European countries and the US, as compared to Caucasians, their doctors found that Indians are more prone to diabetes. So it's a combination of genetically prone plus lifestyle. So lifestyle uncovers the diabetes. And they found that Indians were less obese than the Europeans. Indians were non-smokers more compared to the Europeans, but still Indians were getting heart disease early and diabetes also early in that NRI population. And they found that the obesity of the Indians is centered around the tummy. So it is called a central obesity. So the worrying part is that at that time when say 25-30 years ago, a cardiologist used to see just 2-3 patients of diabetes in his OPD. Now he is saying every second, third patient is diabetic. So this has led to the emergence of a new specialty, cardiodiabetology. So this is where you have. So in the ICMR in-depth survey, where 27% of the Indians had impaired glucose metabolism or impaired glucose homeostasis, about 28% Indians are obese. and 40% Indians have abdominal obesity or central obesity, and this is linked to the generation of future development of type 2 diabetes. So this is the worrying part. Though we have 27% of glucose metabolism disturbance, but we have 40% Indians who are obese from the viscera. So Indians, the obesity is around the tummy, which is much harmful as compared to obesity which takes place in the hips. That is not that is found to be protective rather than harmful. So here, it is this is where we are worried. So we should prevent obesity, because this fatty tissue which is deposited in the pancreas, in the liver, it is called as ectopic fat. Fat from the fatty tissue to going to the organs. So this is responsible for fatty liver. So all these complications which are taking place, these are taking place due to visceral adiposity, and it is giving rise to inflammation. And that is why the need to address this inflammation is there, what I was referring.
Let's go with the evidence available in clinical phase 3, right? In phase 3, we have done the studies up to 12 weeks. Within 12 weeks, 60% of the ulcers got completely closed. So we would like to believe that within 12 week period, almost any patient who has to get a benefit would get. But then there is a second data that after 12 weeks, for further 12 weeks if we observe, and additional 12% patients got completely healed. So basically I would say that between 12 to 24 weeks is the period where almost anybody who has to get a benefit out of the drug would get it.
Sir, there is a question. I have a question about, is this the only drug available in the market? This is Nagesh from Healthcare Ideas. Because I remember a company from Pune, another company, I don't maybe it's the same company, V-Life had introduced a similar drug some 12-15 years ago.
Very fine. So we are V-Life also. So V-Life got merged into Novalid Pharma. So V-Life was first founded by me in 2002. Then I founded Novalid Pharma in 2008. V-Life got merged into Novalid Pharma. So thank you very much for remembering V-Life.
It's a real life.
It's real life.
Hello, so Anjali Singh this side from Business Standard. Coming back to the price point and also other plans to export.
In India, we launched and the price is 10 gram is 1365 rupees, and it's depend upon the size of the wound that what is going to be consumed. So if you see the cost overall, it is not very costly as compared to what are the others. But I cannot compare with like betadine and all. So that's not a right comparison. That's that, and it's very easy. We are thinking future when patient come from a small place, get on first dressing, later on locally they can do this, because these type of patient transportation is very difficult.